Welcome back to the channel. Monaco Grand Prix is in the books, but before we get into my power rankings coming out of Monaco, remember to hit like and subscribe to my channel. Hitting that like button really helps me out in the YouTube algorithm. My power rankings video 2 weeks ago got very few views, but so many people liked it that my race review did pretty well, so I appreciate that. Monaco Grand Prix. The Sunday was a very typical Grand Prix that you would expect from Monaco, a little bit of a procession race, but that didn't mean there wasn't enough drama to keep me very interested and some major moves on my power rankings. Trying something different where I have every name covered up to try and maybe reduce the amount of editing that I need to do so I can get these videos out quicker. Let's get into it. So my cut line, if you're new to the channel, of course, I have my drivers who almost made my top 10, but not quite. This week, Daniel Ricciardo drops off. He did not have the weekend he would have liked in Monaco. For a driver who's won that Grand Prix, he expected more. Getting lapped by your teammate, not a great look, so he drops down. Lance Stroll, still knocking on the door of my top 10, not quite there, but Aston Martin does have some improvements from what we saw coming out of Monaco. And Antonio Giovinazzi. So Giovinazzi gets the first points for Alfa Romeo, for himself for Alfa Romeo, does a great job in qualifying, a good weekend. I wanted to at least acknowledge that. I have him on my board. 10th place in my power rankings, unveiling it. When you're the driver of the day, you make my top 10. Sebastian Vettel puts in a great run and has the most exciting moment of the entire Grand Prix with his overtake of Pierre Gasly coming out of pits. We missed it because of the direction. If you're not aware of that, that's going viral like crazy. One of the most ridiculous moments in an F1 broadcast ever. But Sebastian Vettel puts on a great show, finishes 5th, a fantastic performance. We finally got to see a good classic Seb performance. Hopefully this is the catalyst that improves his season. He's number 10. Coming in at number 9, Esteban Ocon and Alpine. So he doesn't move anywhere on my power rankings. He was 9th last week, but he has a very good Grand Prix in Monaco. He finishes 9th, and he's 9th on my power rankings. He keeps outperforming Fernando Alonso right now. Alonso's probably still getting used to the car, whereas Ocon has had a year in it. 8th place is Charles Leclerc. So Leclerc could have been the Monaco Grand Prix champion this year, but of course we all know what happened on Saturday at the end of that qualifying session. All rumors of did he do that on purpose to secure the pole position went out the window when he didn't even get to start the Grand Prix. Nobody has worse luck in Monaco than the driver from Monaco. Ferrari looks really good though, so I expect him to be knocking on the door again of a podium in Baku. Another street race. Ferrari looks pretty good on those streets right now. We'll see what happens in about a week and a half. But either way, he does drop a fair amount of spots based on that because it was his fault. He crashed on Saturday. 7th place is Pierre Gasly. So AlphaTauri finally gets a really good run in there. Gasly is really good at Monaco and puts in solid performances. And what I really liked about it is that he was not happy with that performance. You finish 6th at Monaco when your team hasn't had a lot of great results this year. That high up in the points, and his teammate for a little while had fastest lap too. He wasn't in the points, but Yuki Tsunoda showed some signs of improvement as well. I thought it was a great weekend for AlphaTauri and a good weekend for Pierre Gasly. So Gasly is going to be bumped up here, even though he wasn't happy with that result. So 7th place, not bad. Hopefully we see a little bit more out of this team moving forward. 6th place, and that one doesn't want to come off, it's Checo. So Sergio Perez needs to qualify better. Doesn't have the best of qualifying sessions again in Monaco. Red Bull gets strategy right again, though, and they're able to improve his position. He comes out ahead of about 2 or 3 cars, including Lewis Hamilton, that he was running behind to start this Grand Prix, and they get a really solid 4th place finish. And that mattered because it gave him the points lead in the Constructors' Championship. Checo, his Sundays have been good. His Saturdays could use some improvement. I think they will improve. He's had one good Saturday so far, but if he can get himself even in the top 5, top 6 in qualifying, he's probably going to be on the podium, I should say, a lot more. So decent weekend for him, an improvement, and I think he's improving maybe a little bit quicker than we saw with Gasly and Albon. We just want to see that Saturdays get a little bit better. 5th place for me, as I knock over my board, Valtteri Bottas. So he has another classic Valtteri Bottas and Mercedes pit stop gaffe at Monaco, but it's not his fault. He put together a really good qualifying run, gave it a shot into the opening turn of the Monaco Grand Prix, which is really the only chance you have of actually winning this race, not from pole. I thought he gave it a really good attempt. Max obviously had it covered. but he was running a very reasonable race, was on pace to get a second place in Monaco, and then his tire wouldn't come off. That's no fault of his own, and I'm not going to knock him way down the power rankings. I knock people down the power rankings like Leclerc when they did something that the driver controlled there, and he put that car on the wall that cost him a chance to start the Grand Prix. Bottas did nothing like that, so for me, he was on pace for a really good second place and a chance to make some ground up on his teammate, and his team kind of let him down there. So nothing he can really do about that one. Fourth place, Carlos Sainz Jr., who happens to be probably the driver who's moved the most on my top 10 power rankings since I've started doing power rankings this year. I haven't really known where to place him because he's had some decent runs and some great runs. No bad runs, though, and that's really important. He is by far the driver who has done the best adapting to his new team and new car. And in fact, he's improved absolutely from where he was with McLaren last year, which is really impressive for what he's doing because he kind of was going to a team that looked worse than McLaren coming into this season. They're right there with him at this point. Obviously, Leclerc not starting this race hurts them in the constructors, but if Ferrari has this type of road course street speed, I fumbled my words on that one, but if he has that kind of speed, he should have another good weekend at Baku, and if he can podium again and maybe have Leclerc up there battling for a podium there, Ferrari could be knocking on the door. Sainz has looked great, so he's way up there in the standings for me. I hope he continues this momentum. I'm really happy for him. Wish he was doing it in McLaren, but it is very cool to see Ferrari up there on the speed charts again and on the podiums, and it looks like it's going to be a lot more often than it was last year. Where last year some of their podiums were at the expense of other people making mistakes. This year that's not the case. When they're up there battling in that top 5, it's on pace, speed, and driver ability, and that's a really great sign for Ferrari going into the remainder of this season and next season. Third place, McLaren's Lando Norris. He finishes third in the Monaco Grand Prix, gets himself an awesome podium. A huge stark contrast from his weekend and his teammate, which you would never guess since Ricciardo is typically so good at Monaco, but full credit and fair play to Lando Norris. He really brought it. That livery, first of all, the Gulf livery looked fantastic. I'm going to have to buy some of that merchandise before it's off their website. Looked really, really great, and Lando gets a great qualifying run and has a fantastic race. And if you told me that Lando Norris would be the McLaren driver to get a podium before the weekend, I never would have believed it, but he keeps getting better and better. And, you know, a lot of people give George Russell the presumed one-day world champion when he gets into a Mercedes. I wouldn't be surprised if Lando Norris figures it out with McLaren in a couple of years. I really feel like McLaren is headed in that right direction. Maybe some bias, being a McLaren fan, of course, but he's headed there, and right now he's third in my power rankings and keeps going up. But he's going to have to put on a really good show and sneak in some wins if he wants to get into second and first. So, as we get to second place, a change at the top, as you would expect when you have a weekend like we had. So I'll reveal these at the exact same time. Lewis Hamilton, and this was a really interesting one. So Hamilton does not have a good qualifying run. Mercedes came out with a video saying that his deltas and his times on Saturday would have been fast enough to possibly put him up there on the pole at some point. I didn't really see that, to be honest with you. I think Valtteri was better than him. They think Lewis Hamilton's car ran better in hotter temperatures on the Thursday practice runs, and they felt that he was going to get there. I don't know, though. He just didn't have a good qualifying on Saturday. And then on top of it, Mercedes kind of messes up their strategy as they try to do the undercut instead of the overcut, and he doesn't get ahead of Pierre Gasly. Winds up stuck and is unable to do anything with it. And that winds up being very costly in the Drivers' Championship and in the Constructors' Championship. So he does drop down. Not totally his fault, but maybe a little bit, because Valtteri was up there in second. So this was a situation where his teammate did put himself in a better spot than Lewis did. If Lewis qualifies second and finishes second with no pit stop gaps, which Mercedes needs to figure out, he's probably still got the lead and everything right now. But with that, Max Verstappen has a really, really good Saturday qualifying run, and it has to be said, he was probably on pace for pole had Leclerc not put the Ferrari in the wall there, which is why so many people thought that it was done on purpose at first. Clearly not the case, as we saw. But on top of that, Max defends when he has to defend to cut off that challenge from Bottas in the first lap, and then it was a Sunday drive from there, which is a little unfair to be said. Yes, there's no overtaking. other than the Haas's putting on a show in the hairpin turn. But Monaco's really hard to drive, and Max has had a history of putting his car on the wall too, so it wasn't a foregone conclusion. And I bet you that entire time Carlos Sainz was thinking, hey, if Max makes a mistake, I'm sitting there for a win. But Max this year, and this is a big difference in the Drivers' Championship from what we've seen with Max in the past, he's not making those mistakes this year. He has been pretty much flawless in every single race, and he's putting himself in a chance to actually compete for the championship for the first time in his career. He's got Red Bull competing for the Constructors' Championship, and he is now competing for my Power Rankings Championship, which he'll be most proud of if he can win that one, I'm pretty sure. If you had to rank him, maybe the Drivers' Championship is second, but definitely not first. My Power Rankings would come first, and he is in good shape right now with that Red Bull. And with that, popping up over here is the current driver standings for my Power Rankings, not driver standings for the Formula One. If you are new to my videos, I put up these overall rankings. It's based on points of where the drivers have finished in my Power Rankings through every week of my Power Rankings so far, with 10 points going to first and 1 point going to 10th. That's how the points work in this. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. I have a pretty good video planned for this weekend, which is not a race review or a Power Rankings, which is pretty much all I've been doing recently, so I'm really excited to share that content with you. And I'll see you in the next video. Talk to you then.